I looked across the room, and there was this face I recognized, and I walked over to her, and I said, excuse me, I just like you to know that every time I see you, I feel really good, and I feel a little calmer.
Gee, I wish he could take just a little bit of time and spend it with us.
Yeah.
You know, I've about given up hope that Dad'll ever be able to take me skiing.
Shelley Fabares, the television icon who gave us Mary Stone, Johnny Angel, and Christine Armstrong, has died at 82, and the man who loved her for 41 years didn't say goodbye with a speech. Mike Farrell posted 2 photographs, one from the beginning, one from near the end, and a single red heart. That was Monday morning. 2 days earlier, on Saturday, August 22nd, his wife of 41 years, Shelley Fabares, died in Los Angeles surrounded by the people who loved her. She was 82. For millions of us, Shelley was the girl next door on the Donna Reed Show. She was the voice behind Johnny Angel. She was Elvis Presley's leading lady 3 times over, and the woman who finally tamed Coach Hayden Fox. But to Mike Farrell, she was something else entirely. And what he said about her this week, and what he did for her during the darkest 22 months of her life, tells you everything about a Hollywood love story that never needed a script. Before we get there, we have to go all the way back to the beginning, because Shelley Fabares grew up in front of us. She was one of us, and her story is far more remarkable than most people ever knew. She was born Michelle Anne Marie Fabares on January 19, 1944, in Santa Monica, California, into a family that already had show business in its blood. Her aunt was Nanette Fabares, the Broadway film and television star, and that connection put young Shelley around the industry from the very start. Her mother, Elsa, got her into modeling as a small child, and by the age of 10, Shelley was already on television. Her debut came in 1954 in an episode of The Loretta Young Show. She was a working actress before she was even a teenager, a little girl in a grown-up business, learning on the job. And then, in 1958, came the role that would define her youth. She was cast as Mary Stone, the teenage daughter of Donna Reed's picture-perfect American mother, on The Donna Reed Show. The series ran on ABC, and for the better part of 8 years, Shelley Fabares was every family's daughter. She grew up on that soundstage, from 14 years old to a young woman, in front of the entire country. Alongside her was Paul Peterson, who played her brother Jeff Stone, and together they were as close to a real American TV family as the era ever produced. When you watched Mary Stone learn to drive, or worry about a school dance, or navigate her first heartbreak, you were watching a real teenager do it too. Now, here's something people forget about that show. Donna Reed wasn't just the star. She was, off-camera, a tough and principled woman in an era when the men ran everything, and Shelley never forgot what Reed did for her. Years later, she credited Donna Reed with teaching her how to survive Hollywood as a woman. Like many women in what was then very much a man's business, Reed had learned to hold her ground, and she passed that lesson down to the teenage girl playing her daughter. Shelley called her simply an extraordinary woman, and she meant it as more than a compliment. Reed helped shape the person Shelley became, both on screen and off. Think about what that soundstage was for her. It was a classroom. It was a second home. It was where a shy kid from Santa Monica learned that she could do this, that she belonged. She told the Los Angeles Times decades later that those years, roughly from 14 to 19, were so incredibly important to her. And you can hear why. Most of us spend our teenage years figuring out who we are in the safety of a school hallway. Shelley did it under studio lights, with the nation watching, and by every account, she handled it with a grace that would define her for the rest of her life. By the 5th season, her character, Mary, had gone off to college and started appearing less often, and Shelley herself left the series in 1963 to chase other opportunities, though she would come back from time to time until the show finally ended in 1966. To put its reach in perspective, The Donna Reed Show ran on ABC from 1958 all the way to 1966, some 275 episodes in all, and Shelley appeared in nearly 200 of them. That's not a guest spot, that's a childhood, and then some lived out on national television. A whole generation of American kids grew up right alongside Mary Stone, week after week, year after year. So when people say Shelley Fabares grew up in front of us, understand that it is the literal truth. But something happened during her run on that show that nobody, least of all Shelley, ever saw coming. Because in the middle of playing America's daughter, Shelley Fabares accidentally became a pop star. It started as a gimmick on the show. The producers had Mary Stone sing a song in one episode, a sweet little number about a girl and the boy she adores. Shelley never thought of herself as a singer. She was, by her own admission, terrified of it. But the song was called Johnny Angel. And in the spring of 1962, Johnny Angel, released on Colpix Records with a backing track that featured some of the finest session musicians in Los Angeles, went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It sold more than 1 million copies. It was certified gold. A teenage television actress who didn't believe she could sing had just recorded one of the defining pop records of the pre-Beatles era. Shelley's own reaction says everything about her. Looking back on it years later, she said, and I'm quoting her, "I was stunned about that, to put it mildly. After all, I never could sing." That was Shelley Fabares in a single sentence. Genuinely modest, a little bewildered by her own success, and never for a moment taking it too seriously. The record's success led to a recording contract, and for a couple of years there, Shelley had a real music career. She released her debut album, Shelley, in 1962. She followed it with The Things We Did Last Summer, which included the charting single Johnny Loves Me, and then Teenage Triangle in 1963. 4 albums in all. Not bad for a young woman who swore up and down she couldn't carry a tune. And Hollywood was watching, because as the 1960s rolled on, Shelley moved from television into the movies, and that's where she crossed paths with the biggest star in the entire world. Between 1965 and 1967, Shelley Fabares starred opposite Elvis Presley in 3 films in 3 consecutive years: Girl Happy, Spin Out, and Clam Bake. Now, a lot of actresses appeared with Elvis over the years, but almost none of them did it 3 times. That made Shelley one of Elvis Presley's most frequent and most fondly remembered leading ladies of the entire decade. The chemistry between them on screen was easy and genuine, and by all accounts, they simply liked each other. You have to remember what an Elvis picture actually was in those days. By the mid-1960s, Elvis had traded the recording studio for the movie lot, turning out a steady string of light, sunny musical comedies for studios like MGM and United Artists. Fast cars, catchy songs, pretty beaches, and a leading lady right at Elvis's side. The critics rarely loved those movies, but audiences did, and for a young actress, being chosen as Elvis Presley's leading lady was a very big deal indeed. Shelley was chosen 3 times. Shelley treasured those films to the very end. In an interview she gave as recently as 2024, 60 years after the fact, she said, quote, "I ended up doing 3 pictures with Elvis, and that was wonderful." Wonderful. 6 decades later, and that's still the word she reached for. And there was more to her film work than Elvis. She was one of the female leads in the 1964 surf movie Ride the Wild Surf. She appeared alongside Peter Noone of Herman's Hermits and Hold On. And in 1968, she played the love interest of a young Hank Williams Jr. in the film A Time to Sing. Stop and take stock of where she was by the end of the 1960s. She was still in her 20s, and she had already been a child actress, a teenage television star on one of the most beloved sitcoms in the country, a gold-selling recording artist with a #1 hit, and Elvis Presley's leading lady 3 times over. Most performers would spend a lifetime chasing any one of those achievements. Shelley had done all of them before she turned 30. But here's the remarkable part. Her most acclaimed work and the great love of her life were both still ahead of her. When the movie roles started to slow down, as they always did for the young stars of that era, Shelley did what the smartest ones did. She went back to television and she kept working. Through the 1970s and into the 80s, she was everywhere. She guest starred across a huge range of series. She took a memorable recurring role as Francine Webster on the hit sitcom One Day at a Time. And in 1971, she delivered one of the most quietly devastating performances of her career. The film was Brian's Song, a modest ABC television movie about two professional football players, Brian Piccolo and Gail Sayers, one white and one black, whose deep friendship becomes the emotional heart of the story when one of them is diagnosed with terminal cancer. It became one of the most beloved and honored television films ever made. If you were alive in 1971, you cried at Brian's Song. And Shelley played Joy Piccolo, the young wife of James Caan's Brian Piccolo, a woman watching the man she loves slip away. It was a small role, and she made it unforgettable. There's a reason people still talk about that movie more than 50 years later, and Shelley's performance is part of it. And somewhere in these years, moving through the same business, Shelley kept crossing paths with a tall, thoughtful actor named Mike Farrell. Farrell was on his way to becoming a household name in his own right. In 1975, he joined the cast of MASH as Captain B.J. Honeycutt, the decent, devoted family man who became Alan Alda's Hawkeye's closest friend through the back half of that legendary series. He stayed with the show until its record-shattering finale in 1983. For a whole generation, Mike Farrell was B.J. Honeycutt. Now, exactly how Mike and Shelley came together is a story that's been told a few different ways over the years. But the version Mike himself gave in an interview this past April, just months before he lost her, is the one that matters. He said that in the business, you sort of bump into each other, and the two of them had crossed paths on the Universal lot at different times. For years, he said, they would simply say hello, and that was it. Their paths had touched and drifted apart more than once. What everyone agrees on is what finally brought them together. By the early 1980s, both of them were coming out of marriages. Shelley had married the influential music and film producer Lou Adler back in 1964. They'd separated after only a couple of years, though the divorce dragged on and wasn't finalized until 1980. Mike, for his part, was ending a long marriage to the actress Judy Farrell, herself a familiar face on MASH, with whom he had two children, Michael and Aaron. And then, both of them newly single, they reconnected, the story goes, at a CBS affiliates gathering, and this time they went out for coffee. Mike told her stories about his travels. She told him she was single, and that was the beginning. About a year later, Mike proposed, and on December 31, 1984, New Year's Eve, the very last day of the year, Shelley Fabares married Mike Farrell at the Pacific Palisades home of her aunt, Nanette Fabares. She became a devoted stepmother to Michael and Aaron, pouring into that role the same warmth she gave everyone. And she and Mike began a marriage that would last through absolutely everything that was coming for the next 41 years. You should know something about the man she married because it tells you something about her, too. Off-screen, Mike Farrell has spent decades as a humanitarian and a human rights activist. He's the longtime president of Death Penalty Focus, the advocacy organization he has championed for years. He wrote a memoir with a title that says it all, Just Call Me Mike, A Journey to Actor and Activist. This was not a typical Hollywood marriage of two people chasing fame. This was a partnership. Two serious private people who had both been around the block, who had both been hurt, and who found in each other something steady and real. And think about how rare that is. Hollywood marriages are famous for one thing above all others, and it isn't lasting. Shelley Fabares and Mike Farrell stayed married for more than 4 decades. And in all that time, they never became tabloid fodder, never aired their business, never gave the gossip columns a single thing to work with. They simply, quietly loved each other and did the daily work of a marriage, year after year, decade after decade. In a town built on illusions, theirs was the real thing. And just as this new chapter of her personal life was beginning, Shelley's career caught fire one more time. In 1989, she was cast in a new sitcom called Coach, opposite Craig T. Nelson. She played Christine Armstrong, a smart, warm television newscaster who becomes the girlfriend and eventually the wife of Nelson's gruff college football coach, Hayden Fox. Jerry Van Dyke was there too, playing the lovably hapless assistant coach Luther Van Dam, and the ensemble they built together was half the reason the show worked. The show was an enormous hit. It ran for 9 seasons, all the way to 1997. And Shelley was so good in it that she earned 2 Primetime Emmy nominations in 1993 and 1994. Just sit with that career arc for one more moment. A #1 record in 1962, Elvis's Leading Lady in the mid-60s, Brian's Song in 1971, and then 3 full decades into her career, Emmy nominations on one of the biggest comedies on television. Almost nobody in the history of the medium gets a run like that, across the teen idol era, the Elvis era, and the modern sitcom era, staying beloved the entire way through. Even after Coach, she kept working. A whole new generation came to know her voice without ever seeing her face, because she voiced Martha Kent, Superman's adoptive mother, in Superman, the animated series. She was the warm, wise voice of the woman who raised the Man of Steel. She gradually stepped away from acting in the 2000s, retiring quietly on her own terms. But it was during those Coach years, right at the peak of it all, that Shelley faced the fight of her life. And it was in that fight that Mike Farrell showed the whole world exactly who he was. In early 1999, Shelley went to the emergency room. She'd had an esophageal bleed, and the doctors who treated her went looking for the cause. What they found was far more frightening than anything she'd walked in for. Her liver was failing, progressively, and it was not going to get better on its own. There was only one way forward: a transplant, a new liver from a donor, or her time would run out. And so began the hardest stretch of her entire life. 22 months on a transplant waiting list. Nearly 2 years of living day to day, waiting for a phone to ring, knowing exactly what the alternative was. 22 months of hoping and dreading and holding on. Think about what that does to a person, and think about what it does to the person beside them. Because through every single day of those 22 months, Mike Farrell was there. Not for a photo op, not for a headline. In the quiet, in the fear, in the endless waiting, he was simply there. In October of the year 2000, the call finally came. Shelley underwent liver transplant surgery, and it saved her life. She got her time back. And understand what that meant. A liver transplant is not a small thing. It's one of the most serious operations in all of medicine, and back in 1999 and 2000, the waiting lists were long and the odds were sobering. That Shelley survived the wait at all was its own kind of quiet miracle, and that she then went on to live another 25 years and more, full, active, and surrounded by love, is the part of this story that ought to make you smile even through the tears. She was given a gift, and she knew it. 3 years later, she sat down for an interview with Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, and she reflected on what she'd been through. She said the experience had changed her. And then she said the thing that, looking back now, tells you everything about the marriage. She said she was eternally grateful to her husband, who had been with her, in her own words, every step of the way. Every step of the way. That was the marriage. Not the red carpets, not the Emmy parties, not the #1 records. A man sitting beside a hospital bed for 22 months, and a woman who never, ever forgot it. And here is the measure of Shelley Fabares. Having been given her own life back, she spent it giving to others. Her mother, Elsa, the same woman who'd first put a 3-year-old Shelley in front of a camera, was living with Alzheimer's disease. And so Shelley became a tireless public advocate for Alzheimer's awareness and research, lending her name, her time, and her energy to the cause for years. She had suffered, she had been afraid, and she turned all of it outward into helping people she would never even meet. She largely stepped out of the spotlight after that, and she and Mike settled into a quiet life together. They weren't tabloid people. They didn't chase attention, but every so often the cameras would catch them. Two people who'd been through it all, still side by side. As recently as the summer of 2025, just over a year ago, the two of them were photographed out together in Los Angeles. 40 years married and still walking side by side. And then, on Saturday, August 22nd, 2026, Shelley Fabares died in Los Angeles. She was 82 years old. Her family did not disclose a cause of death, and they asked gently for privacy. They said only that she was surrounded by those who loved her. And after everything you've just heard, is there really any doubt who was in that room? On Monday morning, Mike Farrell, now 87 years old, shared the family's statement. In it, they remembered Shelley as a source of love, strength, laughter, and comfort. They called her a devoted wife, a cherished stepmother, and a loyal friend. Someone with a remarkable ability to make the people around her feel welcomed, valued, and cared for. For millions, they said, she was a beloved actress whose work became part of the fabric of American television and film. And to those closest to her, they added, her greatest legacy was personal. The love she gave so freely, the friendships she treasured, the family bonds she held dear. They said they were heartbroken by her loss, yet profoundly grateful for the years they shared with her. And then Mike Farrell posted one more thing. No essay, no interview, no long farewell. Just 2 photographs of the two of them. One taken decades ago, when they were young, and one taken recently, when they were not, side by side. And beneath them, a single red heart. 41 years of marriage reduced to its purest possible form. Because really, what else is there to say? He met a woman he'd been quietly saying hello to for years. He took her for coffee. He married her on New Year's Eve. He sat beside her through 22 months of waiting for a liver that might never come. He grew old with her, and when she was gone, he showed the world the beginning and the end of their story, and let the heart in the middle speak for itself. Shelley Fabares is survived by Mike and by her stepchildren, Michael and Aaron. For those of us of a certain age, it's genuinely hard to put into words what Shelley meant. She was Mary Stone when we were young. She was Johnny Angel on the transistor radio. She was Elvis's girl on the movie screen. She was Joy Piccolo when Brian's song broke our hearts, and Christine Armstrong when Coach made us laugh on Wednesday nights, and even the gentle voice of Superman's mother for the kids who came after us. She was never a scandal. She was never a cautionary tale. She was, for nearly 70 years, a welcome and familiar guest in America's living rooms, and by every single account, an even finer person when the cameras stopped rolling than when they were on. Her family said they take comfort in knowing that Shelley's work and the memories she made with the people who loved her will live on, and they will. Every time Johnny Angel comes on the radio, every time Brian's song airs and breaks a new heart, every time a Coach rerun rolls by on a lazy afternoon. Rest easy, Shelley Fabares. And to Mike Farrell, after 41 years, no one ever said goodbye better. If Shelley was part of your growing up, do us a favor and tell us in the comments what you remember her for first. Mary Stone, Johnny Angel, Elvis, or Christine Armstrong, share a memory. Let the people who loved her the same way know they're not alone today. And if you'd like to keep honoring the legends we grew up with, the ones who were part of the fabric of our lives, take a moment to subscribe so you never miss a tribute. Thank you for watching. And thank you for remembering with us.